podcast. Today we're discussing Kentucky Route Zero. I'm your host Marcus, and joining me today, as always, are the homies. First up, we have Greg.
What's up?
What's up? And then, last but not least, we have the homie Trevor.
What's going on?
And we got a guest too, tagging back in. You may remember him from the Black Mesa episode where we got my homie Jonas.
Hey guys, I promise I won't talk about Half-Life. As much as I would love to.
Too late.
Damn.
So Kentucky Route Zero is my game, and this is for the month of July, so I'm going to kick us off. Kentucky Route Zero is a point-and-click adventure game developed by Cardboard Computer and published by Annapurna Interactive. And for those keeping score at home, Trevor and I had previously covered both What Remains of Edith Finch and Gora Gora on Bonus Cast, and both of those games were other games that Annapurna had helped publish. But Cardboard Computer is a three-man team composed of designer/programmer/writer Jake Elliott, designer/artist Thomas Kaminsky, and sound designer/composer Ben Babbitt. This is their second game. The first was a surreal narrative game called A House in California, and that was released in 2010. Kentucky Route Zero was originally conceived in the aftermath of the 2008 recession and was first revealed in 2011 via Kickstarter, raising $8,583. And they set a goal of $6,500, so they beat it by about $2,000. The game is separated into 5 acts that were released sporadically throughout its development, with the first act releasing in January 2013 and the last act in January 2020. And if you guys would remember, this was around the time that Take-Two had released the Walking Dead series, and so this was like really, really early in the, I guess we could say, adventure game revitalization. Even I read an interview with Cardboard Computer, and they had planned to have the game completed in a year, but as it went, the first act was released in January 2013, second act was May 2013, the third act was May 2014, the fourth act was in 2016, and then this last act, the fifth and final act, was released in January of this year, 2020. So about a 7-year span from first act to last, and about a 9-year span from when it was initially revealed. The developer cited American novelist Flannery O'Connor, Colombian novelist Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and American filmmaker David Lynch as big inspirations. They also looked at theater scripts for inspiration in helping characterization, dialogue, environment design, treatment of space, lighting, and movement. And then beyond film and theater, the game also references poetry, philosophy, semiotics, bluegrass music, computer art, and interactive fiction. And all are inspirations used in this tale of economic ruin visited on the Rust Belt by the greed of the super rich. It's not so much a game about capitalism, but more so what capitalism does to people. And the game follows the narrative of truck driver Conway and the strange people he meets as he tries to cross the fictitious Route Zero in Kentucky to make a final delivery for the antiques company for which he works. The game features no traditional puzzles or challenges, with the focus being primarily on storytelling and atmosphere that the developers called magical realism. The player controls Conway by clicking on the screen, either to guide him to another location or interact with other characters and objects. The player also has the choice to choose Conway's dialogue and occasionally the dialogue of other characters during in-game conversations. The game is separated to various locations which Conway can travel between using his truck. Map is shown when traveling on the road, and the player must guide the truck icon to the destination of their choosing, mostly areas where the player has been pointed or sent out to, and the player can also take control of other characters at certain times. The game was originally developed for Linux, Windows, and Mac OS, and console ports for PS4, Xbox One, and Switch were released under the subtitle TV Edition, coinciding with the release of the final act. The game has received critical acclaim for its visual art, narrative, characterization, atmosphere, and themes, and has appeared on several Best of the Decade lists. And that is my introduction, kind of lengthy. So first things first, what did everybody play this game on? Let's kick it to you first, Jonas.
So this is the first game that I played with a Steam Link and a Steam controller. So PC, but it felt like a console, kind of like a Phoenix Wright type of game. The mouse Edgeworth one, you know what I mean? Yeah. I really like the Steam controller, but I'm new. Maybe I'll hate it later. Nobody likes it.
Well, never mind.
And you had never played this before, or?
No, I played the first 2 chapters back when the game came out, right? And I was super into it. And by that time, I hadn't seen anything David Lynch by then.
Yeah.
But I was super into it because this game takes a lot of inspiration from this one novel that everybody has to read in high school in Puerto Rico called 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
He's the other person another inspiration for this game.
Yeah, exactly. And then they make it super obvious by giving a family in the game the last name of Marquez, and also where they live is, I think it's called 100 Macondo Drive, and Macondo is like a direct reference to that book. So by the time I started playing this game, I already knew where they were going with. And you mentioned something about they wanted it to make a magical realist.
Yeah.
So that term comes from, or was largely popularized by 100 Years of Solitude. Yeah, like the magical realist style.
He was a pioneer from what research I did on that type of writing in that with that genre in mind.
For a lot of people, he's like the intro to that sort of like surrealist genre of fiction or like media in general. Has a lot in common with David Lynch, and I think that a lot of people, if you like Twin Peaks or Mulholland Drive, you're gonna love this game.
Yes. What about you, Trevor?
So I played this game on Switch, and was it included in that bundle, the Itch?
I don't think so. The racial justice one? No, I don't think so.
Never mind. It was another game we're playing. It was included in it. But yeah, I picked it up on Switch. I honestly think I heard about it in passing. Never watched any gameplay. Never looked at a trailer for it. I don't know why. I just never even looked it up. Like, I think I heard about it on the Waypoint podcast. But was just never, I don't know. I like point-and-click adventure games, but for some reason I never gave this one a chance. So.
Gotcha. And what about you, Greg?
I played on Steam, and this was my first time ever hearing about this game at all. So, I just went into this completely blind.
Huh.
Oh, nice.
I'm interested. What caused you guys to vote on this? In our system, the other games were whack.
I don't even remember what was in the lineup.
The title of the game sounds interesting.
So, this was a game that I was familiar with. I had heard other podcasts talk about it, primarily Waypoint, and I had seen it pop up on a couple of various Game of the Year discussions whenever an act would come out, and I'm like, how are they giving this game that's not even in my head complete Game of the Year, it didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I agree.
And I was like, how if anything too, they're only ranking or rating a singular act. They're not even ranking the entire game. Or at least that's what I felt like. That's what it looked like to me.
And that was probably because in recent years, there was always the discussion around PUBG. Because it was in early access for the longest, and so that kind of opened up that Pandora's box.
Sure.
A lot of other games.
I mean, because I had been listening to game podcasts for a while, and I remember when Walking Dead had come out, and I remember how big of a deal it was that the game was so good. I think the game was so good, but you had to wait for you to experience it all. And I remember there being a month or so that an act was supposed to come out every month, and I think they missed a month or two for a couple of acts, and people were like, if they don't get this whole game out by the end of this year, it won't be eligible for Game of the Year, and it's just crazy to see. I think Minecraft was another game where people weren't considering it a full game because it was like I think it was early access for the longest time too. But beyond that, I had just it was always a game, and this is how I always feel about games that are released not all at once. It's I'm just gonna wait till the whole thing is out before I'm gonna even touch it. And
right,
this game, I'm so happy I did that, because being able to get it made me have a better appreciation for the characters that were, as I was dealing with them in the game.
It felt like a complete journey to you, right?
Exactly. Versus if there was a 2-year break in between playing Act 2 and Act 3, I more than likely would have to replay the game over again just to remember what happened. But then I kind of would have felt I was getting I was just dipping in for a quick moment to see something instead of experiencing this overall story. But I think that this game could be played the other way too. But I'm glad that I waited.
Yeah, I can't imagine playing this game episodically, just because The Walking Dead and other games like that lend themselves to being episodic. They give you a recap at the beginning. Mm-hmm. They tell you what choices you made in the previous episode. Whereas this one is almost... There's a lot of text. I mean, we were talking about it before we started recording. This is like a novel, and I can't imagine picking up a book, reading one chapter, and then waiting, months or years later,
right,
and reading another chapter, and then doing that until completion of the book.
Yeah, I mean, but the one thing I will say, that analogy I 100% agree with, but there are so many not so many, but you're not necessarily playing the same one singular character in this game. You're playing multiple characters, and if you look at it as a sense of you're reading a book with 5 chapters, and each chapter kind of focuses on a different character, and they all interact and are dealing with each other, but you're kind of maybe seeing it as 5 different arcs within a single story. I think that makes sense. And some of the themes and things that this game is saying are very, very dire, very sad, hopeless situations. And kind of getting all of that in one steady stream is kind of overwhelming in a sense too. Because it's damn, what... Society sucks.
It has a lot of context, right? A lot of context to understand the things that are happening in the game. And I think that I was one of those people that started playing in the beginning of the game, and I played the first chapter when it came out, and then I played you said that was on a January, and then I think chapter 2 was on a May, or
it was May.
Yeah, it was just a couple of months. So I was on board for this whole, I'm just gonna play this every couple of months and I'm gonna be engaged. And back then, that was when I was super into quote unquote Phoenix Wright games, visual novels, point and clicks, right? Mm-hmm. So I was I'm all in for this new story that is gonna maybe in a year is gonna be done. And then after episode 3 took so long to come out, it's kind of like a Half-Life thing where the hype just kind of died down, And now that I'm playing it again, I'm I'm glad I waited, because I kind of forgot about the game, and a lot of things just went to the back burner. This game, I would have rather waited, and I would rather play it the whole way through.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that playing it episodically is good. It's just I don't think that model in game development is right. Games are not like TV shows where you can, I'll just wait for the next season. Nah, you want to have everything now, or if you're going to make it that way, it's really hard for the developers to deliver, and it just kind of slips through the cracks, right?
I was just about to make that same comparison, because when this game when the first episode or the first act was released, that was 2013?
2013, yes.
And, 7 years ago, binge watching had just became like a real thing. Like even streaming services were still releasing shows episodically. Mm-hmm. But now, like when streaming platforms release a show, it's all at once. So you can binge watch an entire season of a show in a weekend. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just a part of, the sign of the times. Like, people would rather binge watch something than watch it episodically. Of course, depending on the genre, but, you would rather have everything right there in front of you, like Jonah said.
Well, this game is also, like, critiquing and talking about how things and norms in society are being left behind. So maybe you guys need to check yourselves and realize that they're doing things the way they want to, the way things have always been.
Listen, we don't live in oh brother where art thou times.
Hey, this is a modern story.
Yeah.
Like for real. Like it's taking place in the moment. Like it's not like, this is not set in the 80s. Like, I mean, I get kind of why you would think that with some of the, like, the TVs and things like that, but this is very much like, this is
like
set
current times. Like,
this is the 2010s. The 2010s.
But also, one thing that I like, I mean, admittedly, I'm still in the middle of the game, so I don't know the full details of the plot, but I like how the story is kind of like non-linear at times, or at least some plot points are not non-linear, and I sometimes kind of imagine the game in this like big window between like the 90s and the nows. I don't. It's hard to explain, but I can't pinpoint like an exact year on the things that are going on, right?
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like this is an opportunity for us to nerd out, but like all those shows, Twin Peaks and like even how Alan Wake is, anything set in like the Pacific Northwest, it has like a certain aesthetic that is like, it doesn't matter if this is in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s or whatever, it has like aesthetic and like it's almost in a timeless sense. It's like,
this is Kentucky though.
Sure, right. But it still has.
But it does feel that way, yeah.
Right. Like they go to the woods. There's there's a flood at one point. Like just like heavy rain and like boats and like everything still checks off those things that like when you think like, oh, like this is Pacific Northwest. Oh, Life is Strange is another one too.
Yeah.
But like it just has that aesthetic and that vibe.
That moody, surreal, like ooh feeling.
Yeah, and like you said, it's set along I-65, which is like literally like 5 minutes from my house. It's really cool.
What I like about the way that they're handling like the location, I love the random bust out bluegrass moments in the game, and it's just for me personally like that's one thing that I haven't been around ever since I was a kid, like a lot of people in the Midwest do, right? So every time I hear like that twang, the banjo and stuff, I'm like, oh, I love it. Yes, I love it. Give me more.
No, it's not a Midwest thing. It's definitely like a Kentucky thing.
Yeah.
And then it's always seen in the movies. Like I remember the Looney Tune movie, but I always thought it was like a southern like redneck Louisiana type thing, like the Marsh people. But yeah, it's definitely like because it's Kentucky bluegrass is kind of like it's a thing. So yeah, it's not a Midwest thing.
Yeah, well every time they break into those moments, that's another reason why I've taken so long with the game. I just stay there and I just soak it in. Like
just vibe out.
It just the game is one big vibe. It's one big mood.
Oh man, I always feel like every time we do an episode, I always feel like I don't know how we would start this, and this is like the most true about this game is like, what do you guys want to talk about? Let's talk about it. Do you guys have anything specifically that you want to start with?
I guess it's fair that we don't go past episode 3 or act 3.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about necessarily story beats or like environments, but
like how the game like the flow of the game.
Yeah.
I absolutely adore how the game in how they tell the story it doesn't feel like, even though it's very linear and there's very little gameplay on it, I feel like I'm choosing what's happening to the characters. I feel like I'm almost like a game master on a Dungeons and Dragons game, and the way that people interact and like the things that happen in the game, I don't know if they're that linear or not. I haven't looked at how the paths in the story work, but I feel like everything that is happening is because of the actions that it shows.
I think one of the things they did say about the game is like, no matter what choice you make, like I think the events still kind of play out the same way.
Yeah, I would imagine, but they do a really good job at hiding it.
Oh yeah, totally, yeah.
It's funny that Jonas mentioned D&D, because when I was playing this game in the very first act, you run into that group of people when they're playing D&D in the basement, and as soon as I got to that scene, I immediately thought, okay, we're in for some flavor, because I mean that's pretty much all D&D is like, yeah, you're playing this game, but the main thing about it is the flavor that's added in there. This game is just full of flavor text. It describes everything to the most minute detail.
It's like such a... I have like a couple of different things that you guys have said that I want to branch off and talk about. One of the things that I wrote down was like, you don't control the characters. You're like literally directing a play. So you're like not in control of a character. You're just saying like, this is what this person is going to mention, or this is what this person is going to mention. And you're like literally you're shaping the discussions that these people have, and you are basically creating these characters.
Dude, you just blew me away. I don't know if you've played the in-between chapters. I think you said you
I did not.
Right?
I haven't.
That's crazy. The way you say it like that, because one of the in-between chapters is literally a play. And like it plays out like a scene, and then you look back, and there's like a whole audience, like a play. Oh my, dude, that's the thing. This is like you're directing a play. That's great.
Hold up, so you're not required to play those, like the interludes?
No, I didn't. I missed them. I didn't even know they were a thing.
So like on Switch, I guess it's just with the TV edition. They only came out
now.
Okay, maybe it's just the TV edition that requires you to play the game, in that order. But yeah, between each chapter, there's like a little mini episode that's like an interlude.
So it doesn't make you play it because I completely skipped them. I'm playing the TV edition too. I thought that the text that was after each number was the name of the chapter. So when I was moving the compass, I was just moving to the numbers.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, that happened to me too.
So I completely skipped all those interludes in between. So I didn't I ended up reading, finding out about that later, and I'm like, crap, like I'm gonna at some point I'll just like replay the game. And
no, but I don't think you're missing anything, because those interludes came out in January, so all that is new. It's all new content that came out with the final.
Well, from what my understanding is, what I read was that it was like you weren't playing like main characters, but like there was themes and things in those that were relating to the upcoming
episode. They introduce you to some of the characters.
And as far as I know, that was the only quote-unquote gameplay in the game, too. Like, the only time, like, you're doing something beyond just clicking.
Well, the ones I've played so far, even though the flow of those in between chapters are similar, it's just different. Like, it's not like a point and click. It's more like a scene that's playing out, and where you're focusing at the moment is the narrative, and like I said, the game flows extremely well. Like I'm such a fan of how they like how the engine works, because I haven't felt like I've missed anything so far.
Okay. Yeah, so like just kind of going off of what I was saying, is like you're slowly creating these characters and who you set them up to be. So like okay. How far did you get, Greg?
I started Act 4.
Act 4, and then Jonas, you said you're in Act 3?
In between, yeah.
And you finished the game, Trevor?
Yeah, I finished the game.
Okay, so like this is not going to be spoilerly, whatever. Yeah. But like that final act, you're not controlling any of the characters that you've been up until that point. And those characters are operating on their own. So you're like creating the character, like their wants and desires as you're playing up until that chapter or that act, and then you see some of that stuff starting to be played out. And I really, really dug that. I like initially when I was playing chapter 5 or act 5, I was just kind of like, whoa, I'm not, like, nothing is really happening. But then when I realized what I had to do and what was going on, I was like, oh, this is actually pretty sick.
Is it kind of like the museum part where the whole like that whole part of the museum act is just you're playing as a security guard, seeing these guys like talk to the residents of the museum? Oh, that's dope. I love that. I forgot all about that. Like I was like, oh yeah, like claps. Wonderful director there.
Yeah. And so like, even though we're saying like, like the situations and the points in the game are always going to happen, just some of the interactions you have and some of the characters, like your Junebug and your Johnny can have a completely different ending at the end depending on the conversation pieces that you chose earlier on. So even though they are always going to have that show, like that, the ending part of like what they do at the end is going to be completely different. Same thing with like Shannon, and same thing with just her attitude on certain things. It's going to be completely different. Ezra as well. So I really, really like I've never played a game like this before where you're like,
it feels like there's consequence, actually.
Exactly.
That's the problem with a lot of visual novels and point-and-click adventure games. I feel like no matter what I do, the characters are the same. But in this one, like I feel it like there's completely different reactions for the same situations. And I'm glad to hear that you say that in the final act, it kind of like plays out.
Yeah.
That just makes me want to like actually care about, like in my head, what these characters are doing.
Yeah. Like there was never a point where I was like, you know what I miss? I miss the Johnny's gonna remember this. Or like, knowing when something that you said or did is an important part in the story. It's like in this game, like everything is not important, but everything is important at the same time. So you're having like a super innocent conversation where it's just Conway and Shannon just talking about Conway's past and his relationship with the person that is his boss and like what's going on with the company he works for. But then, later on in the game, she's going to maybe bring up or mention some of the things, and you can like, you guys are talking about like, in all of our stories, they're probably talking about the same thing, but the entire vibe and just like way the conversation is going can be completely different.
I think one of the best examples. One of the best examples of that is like really early on when you're at the gas station and the attendant, I can't remember his name, asks your dog's name, and it actually gives you options to choose from. So, like you're not just responding, you're not just giving a response. You really are shaping this game, because throughout the rest of the game, that's what you call your dog. There's no right or wrong answer.
All right, I'm gonna guess. Greg did blue, Trevor did blue, Jonas did Homer.
Wow. Okay, I did Homer.
I mean, you're right.
Homer.
Oh, you did Homer, Greg?
Yeah.
Oh, damn. Okay, 2 out of 3. I already know Trevor.
My dog's name actually is Blue. So
That was good.
I did Homer as well.
Yeah, Homer gang.
Well, it's like Homer in the Odyssey, and like you're basically like, you're going on this epic with this dog.
Dude, I just thought of The Simpsons.
Yeah. So, there was another thing that somebody had said that I wanted to like. The thing so this game, like I defined it, or like it's defined as a point and click adventure game, but like there is no. I want to say the only puzzle in the game is that finding that D12 or D20 in the very beginning.
Yeah, and if you want to keep it or take it with you, right?
But I mean, even then, like just the act of finding it, that's really
that's the only element of like a point and click.
Yeah. just
like
that,
you're saying, as far as like you have to turn off the lights or read the sign to give you.
Like that's the only like puzzle, and that's also the only time where you're like, do you want to put this in your inventory? That's the only time, and I really, really like. I think like something like that would play so differently if you had to wait in between acts, because you're thinking like, okay, like the next act maybe there's going to be a little bit more gameplay or something like that, right? And then so like I think certain things that they do in this game are like setting up your expectation of what's going to happen, and it doesn't not necessarily doesn't deliver, but it kind of subverts what you were expecting was going to happen. And that was one of those examples where it's like that's super early in the game and you're like, oh, well, that's kind of easy, but I wonder what I'm going to use this D20 for. Just thinking in line of like other point-and-click adventure games that you have played in the past.
I mean, let's be honest here. There's gameplay games and then there's story games. And sometimes when you're playing a story game, the gameplay kind of gets in the way. And I appreciate that this game is kind of shameful in the way that, okay, this is a game, quote unquote, a game. But this is really like we said, this is a novel, and even if it plays out like a game and like you're a director of a play, but really you're here for the story. Let's be honest. And everybody got interested in the game because of the story or the visuals. The gameplay, I feel like if they added more of that point and click gameplay, maybe it would have gotten in the way of the narrative. And we're all here for the narrative, I think.
We'll see. I see Greg saying, So I have a feeling how Greg feels about this game.
Quote unquote game.
Well, I mean, what do you guys think? Like, I had the question. I mean, we can throw in some of my questions. I had the question down. Is this a video game?
I mean, yeah, technically it is.
Damn.
Yeah, do you use a controller? I am. So
I just use my mouse.
Oh, fair enough. Well, there you
go. I just use my mouse.
It's one of those. It definitely has that that indie artsy game genre. You know what I mean? Like those games that are trying to be more like a piece of art than an actual game. So in that sense,
You said they're trying hard?
They're kind of trying hard, but I like it. Like, I'm here for it. Like, I'm right in that demographic when you look at, like, how the story and, like, the locations and everything. But I can totally get why it could be, like, if you're not into that in the first place, like, I don't know.
And
go ahead, Trevor.
I think the other thing that kind of catches people's attention with this game is all the literary and, like, film references that this game adds, but if you don't really catch on to any of that, then it's hard to find a point of reference in this game. Like, why is it interesting that the dog's name is Homer? Why is the Marquez name significant? So,
well, I mean, like, even if you don't necessarily know some of that stuff, like, just that's like little, I won't even say breadcrumbs. It's like little nods to, like, if you know, you know. But that doesn't make or break whether somebody's experience, in my opinion, is like what they take away from the story. Like, that's just like a little, like, here's a little reference.
I think in this game it adds to it, because once you get to the zero and you see what it actually is, and you start seeing, oh, well, there's references to like theories and other, like, physics and I'm not really into, I'm not that deep into, like, quantum theory and all that kind of stuff, but once you see that that's what they've included in this game, you kind of see where they're going with it.
Gotcha. I don't know, like, I kind of...
But I could see somebody not having any, like, point of reference to, or not understanding any of those references and still enjoying this game.
Yeah, like, I don't know, like, because I feel like this game, it even just without the references, like you said, like, somebody should be able to enjoy this game, because it altered. There still is a lot there. Like, that first act, it's very mysterious. Like, that gas station with those people playing the D&D. Like, you don't know what's going on there. You meet this weird stranger, like, gas attendant, and he's like, go downstairs and turn on the power. Then you're thinking, like, why is this dude sitting out of his side of this gas station with no power on? And, like, that's kind of weird. And then you're trying to find this mysterious place, and like, I'm not sure what's going on. Then, like, when you meet that girl, what is her name? Weaver.
Weaver.
Yeah. When you meet Weaver, and it's like that whole interaction is super interesting and just super surreal. Then when you're head to the mine and you're just like, yo, wait, this is how I was supposed to get to zero, but this is just like a dead end, and like there's a lot of mystery to what's going on, and I think it really hits those Pacific Northwest things that we were talking about, that vibe too.
I like it because when we're how do I say this? When we're going that deep, man. When we're going that deep, it's really easy to come off as maybe pretentious or inaccessible. But I feel like even though they're referencing all these things, it's not like in your face, and it's not like, oh, it doesn't make like. You can still go in and enjoy the story for the story and the references and the obvious kind of like hidden lore behind certain things.
Yeah, it's not like Family Guy where the joke isn't funny if you don't understand what they're talking about.
Exactly. Like, there's even like hidden things. Like, I didn't find this out until like doing a little research, but that gas station. So it's a horse. If you look at like the part that's above ground is the horse's head and neck.
Oh yeah.
And then when you go down underground, if you were to zoom out all the way, you're in the body of the horse with the legs and everything. And
that's crazy.
I didn't even see that part.
Whoa.
Yeah, like, here, I'm gonna send that to you guys because it's super obvious. Like, I don't know how much of it you can see in the game, but it's just like something that's like, because I was trying to figure out what the significance of horses were in the game, and like why, like what was the through line with that. Did you get the link?
Yeah.
Oh, I see it. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I mean, that's just something I didn't know, but I thought that was super cool. And there's like things like that where it's like you get in what you put in, or you take out what you put in. So like if you wanted to do a deep dive and try to get a lot of the references and stuff, you can do that. You can get a better appreciation for the game. But I still feel like there's enough there in the game to deliver on, like, even if you don't know all the things.
Yeah. No spoilers. The whole thing with the horses and the random horses in the whole game, I just thought that was a Twin Peaks reference because in Twin Peaks the white horse is kind of like a plot point or like just a thing like a mysterious thing in the series, and I just thought, oh, they took that white horse symbolism, they put it in this game, and I didn't know they actually like. All this, like, it's just hidden in plain sight. You sent me this picture, and I'm just like, yeah, duh, yeah.
Yeah, and like, I mean, it also kind of ties into, I mean, Kentucky is where they have the Kentucky Derby, and so like horses are like a big thing in Kentucky, anyways, like horse racing and everything, and like the game is it like kind of embodies the aesthetic and spirit of like Americana. So like, there's like winding highways and gas stations and dive bars and white picket fences and bluegrass music and like all these things that are supposed to invoke some type of like being proud or just like kind of like the idyllic American experience.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's a culture, and it's a very specific culture, and even though it kind of feels also like a Pacific Northwest kind of thing. It really ties into, like, when you think about the game, you're not gonna be disappointed. Kentucky Route Zero, and like it kind of like plays out in the game with the stuff you see and the stuff you read, right?
Yeah.
The whole whiskey
thing. Can I branch off of this image that you sent?
Yeah.
So I want to go back to when I can't remember who mentioned it, but basically about the in between episode, the interlude.
Yeah,
that is basically where you're like watching a play. And once I got to that scene, I thought I understood this game. I mean, it just kind of blew my mind when this scene started. And I know you said you haven't played it, Marcus, but do you care if I spoil it for you?
No.
I mean, just the details of it. But basically, you start and you're looking at this table, and it's almost as if you're a patron, like sitting at a table eating, and there's a couple of things laid out on the table. But then as you look up and you're going through all this dialogue, you realize, these people are talking around you, and then you can kind of move around. And every time you change your view, you can look up, and the lights are like actual stage lighting, and they change depending on where you're looking. And so if you, like towards the end, if you turn around, you actually see the audience like behind you. And that part made me realize like everything in this game, every single scene is really like a set piece. Like if you look at the gas station, like it's very stylized. Pretty much everything they try to make it so it looks like a work of art. Like you can take a screenshot of this game whenever you are driving the truck and you pull up to a house or to any building. You look at the landscape and the silhouette of the house, and you can really see like the detail that was put into that. Even though this game doesn't have like a lot of detail, it kind of has that low poly look. I mean, there is a lot of detail and attention put into how this game is perceived, like while you're playing it, just from a visual standpoint.
Can I say something about that play?
Oh yeah.
When I realized that I could move the camera. And then when I moved the camera, I only moved it a little bit, and I only saw darkness, and I continued almost the whole scene. And then I decided to move at it again, and when I saw the audience, that just blew my mind. Like, whoa! Like, holy crap! I get it. Yeah.
I had that same reaction.
Have you guys seen Twin Peaks season 3?
No. I've only watched like a few episodes of that show. Like I always wanted to get into it, but
you can't.
So the thing is. No, I get it, and I get season 3 is a totally different beast. Like it's barely the same show, but just real quick, in Twin Peaks, there was like an after credits thing, or like a just before the credit scenes where you just got like scenes with extremely random characters in a bar talking about extremely random situations that have nothing to do with the plot itself of Twin Peaks. And I feel like these interludes are like a nod to that pre-credit scene, random characters just giving you a whole like situation, and it's more like about the mood of the things that they're talking about, instead of the things that they're talking about have anything to do with the plot of the actual game. It's just like, we're gonna. It's more like a world building thing, and that's the vibe I'm getting with this in between things. Like they're just kind of like stressing the point of the game even more with random unrelated storylines.
I love it. It's like I didn't watch the third season, but I watched the other two, and so I really dug that show. But I definitely can see why Greg was like couldn't get into it, because it's definitely it's different.
I think
it's different.
In Waypoint, they actually I've never seen Twin Peaks, by the way, so.
Treat yourself.
I mean, I've only been in the restaurant one time, and it was It was
Never been in the restaurant.
I would hate to go and it not being good. I would hate to do that. I'd rather leave it to fantasy.
I think Waypoint actually used the show Atlanta, Donald Glover's show, as like I don't know if that's kind of Twin Peaks-esque.
Yeah, so like one of the things I recently rewatched Atlanta with my wife, because she had never watched it like the whole season 1 and 2, and I was kind of telling her like there are some times where we're watching an episode and she's like, I don't like the one episode with the kid who was in whiteface at the end.
Yeah,
and she's like, what? I don't get it. And I was like, it's not necessarily like, I don't have an explanation for why this is.
It's not about getting it. It's about the feeling that you're having when you're seeing it.
Exactly. It's like, you know what? Like, there's Twin Peaks and there's these other shows and movies where people are allowed to do surreal stuff. Not to say that nobody said you can't do this or whatever. And I appreciate that now we're like seeing a black person doing that and doing a surreal thing, because this is not necessarily something that maybe your typical black person is exposed to. Not to say that he's more cultured or anything like that, but like I don't necessarily know a lot of people that were watching Twin Peaks.
Yeah,
you know, it's like it's just not like the media that they're consuming. It usually doesn't. It's not necessarily surreal. So I don't know. Like I kind of wish, like I was thinking about it when Jonas was talking about it, and I was like, this is like an MF Doom album, or this is like a Kendrick album, where it's like he's like the way the characters are growing in this game and like are shifting and changing, and the interactions and stuff that they're having. It's no different than like a Kendrick Lamar album where he's like, yo, this is Keisha right here, I'm going to reference her on this album, but then if you listen 2 albums later, or like even a different song, he may make a mention or reference of
That's so crazy you say that. Yeah, I get it completely. I get it. It feels like a Kendrick album. That's say. It's really weird to say, but I get it.
Yeah, and like that's kind of how you can kind of view this game, where it's like, because you know a lot of times Kendrick albums also have themes, and then it's also like the albums they may seem like their overarching storyline, or the thing they're talking about is one thing, but then when you place them all together, then there's an overarching gap amongst the 3 albums and all this type of things. And like this game is like, yo, this is what happens when capitalism goes out of control, and like they have the company, or the bad guys, the Consolidated Power Company, and they kind of just bought up and a lot of businesses, and like a lot of people's livelihood and well-being was because they were a miner working for the Consolidated Power, or they were working at the comms station for them, or all these different things where these people's livelihoods were either because of this big energy company or smaller ones, and just things happened, and they either like there's so many tragic stories in this game where it was like, these miners, and then the mine flooded and 28 people lost their lives, and like that's that. And like just like the after effects of like a community, and like that has to deal with like the
processing the grief.
Exactly.
You mentioned something about the 2008 recession. I had no idea that the game kind of like got inspired or branched off that real life scenario.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming, like, this is me projecting a little bit. I'm assuming these guys, just based off of what I've read about them, I don't think they're that much like older than us. So I'm assuming that they were getting out of college around that time. And like I was going into college in 2008, but like I know there's a ton of people that were dealing with a lot of financial hardships after graduating and thinking, I got my degree, getting a job will be a breeze, and then just like nothing. People were being laid off and all that, and so like that event shaped a large portion of our society, and like just people like the creatives that are putting out stuff now, so like it's really interesting to see, because it was like I'm like a little too young of a millennial to like have experienced like the hardship of trying to get a job out of college. Like I had a struggle, like don't get me wrong, like it took me like half a year to get a real job out of college, but it wasn't in the same.
It wasn't like you had a family or you had bills to pay.
The economy was completely different in 2012 versus 2008.
But even then, I feel like a lot of people that were alive, even if they were kids, I mean, a lot of parents lost their jobs, and it really shines through in a lot of things that are going on, like the janitor, the Shannon, she's like on her last legs,
Yeah, like everybody. Like I mean, Conway is working for an antique company that like he's doing deliveries, and like he's an older person already that's been around the block, and like the business isn't doing well. And then on top of that, like just all the different characters. Shannon, who's the first character that he meets, is she's a Marquez, so the reference to the dude, but they're a Hispanic family, and they had a economic hardship. So you find out that Weaver, their daughter, she's basically on the run because she's not trying, like the people are out to get her because she owes money, and so that's why she's like disappeared, and that's why she's hard to track. It's because she's trying to stay a step ahead of everybody.
Yeah.
And then Shannon is a TV repair person, which is like not necessarily a job title that you see a lot nowadays. The Junebug and Johnny they're like, I guess you could say classically trained. They're the sons or the sons and daughters of miners, and that was basically all that was set up for them to do. And that's why, like, they kind of, I think they made a couple references, like I have the skills or know-how of a miner or things like that, because that was what the path was set out for them to do. And then mining just wasn't a viable option.
Yeah, and even with Shannon, they kind of overshadow that by saying, oh, she's a TV repair person, but the new models are giving her trouble or something like that. I don't know if you guys got that dialogue, but yeah, it kind of like, ooh, yeah, of course, because new TVs, right?
Yeah, and then like later on, like I think it's chapter or act 4, like they go to like a telephone company or whatever, and they were saying like, oh, we used to have like all these people here that were transferring people's lines and whatever, and they literally saying like, oh, they basically technology kind of worked them out of a job, and now they're down to the last person, and that's the only job she's ever had. She's only, I think she said, I'm in my late 30s, and I've been doing this for 20 years or something like that. And she said, I don't know how I'm supposed to start over because I don't know what to, I don't know what I can do. And it was just kind of like super sad because she's like doing this job and she knows that her time there is limited because eventually her, just like everybody else, is going to get replaced. And it's, like I have everybody in this game is being left behind by society for one reason or another.
So if you take away the whole aesthetics and surrealism and the deep David Lynch, Gabriel Garcia Marquez factor of it, would you say this game is kind of like a political statement or not really? Because it feels like it, but it doesn't feel. It feels like it's talking about the consequence of capitalism, but it's not like, oh, capitalism bad, right?
I think the characters are kind of speaking to that already, like within the game. Like they know who they're working for and who's kind of responsible for some of the things that have happened to this community. So I don't think the game necessarily has to put it in there and paint them as like an antagonist in this game, but the characters are already speaking to that.
I think it's kind of like judge me by my, like, I guess how I act, kind of, and it's like these characters, they don't really have any. They have all the reason to be mad about capitalism, but like literally they're just trying to survive. Like they, like you see Conway, no spoilers, but like. He's riddled with like guilt at some points for like owing people stuff, and it literally like changes like him as a person, literally, and just like some of the interactions that people have where it's like this is a necessity, but it's like what else are you gonna do? This is the only way, and like a lot of times it's just these people are like. I don't think it's like these characters have to say outwardly that capitalism is bad or anything like that. They're just kind of like a byproducts of a capitalist society, really. And so I don't think this game is necessarily a political statement. I think it's just showing the realities of a system, Like we've definitely played like, and maybe this is like not the way to look at it, but like if you want to see like a capitalism is bad game, like this ain't. I don't think this is.
This ain't it. Yeah.
Well, I think it doesn't necessarily like.
It's more so showing the.
It's more social,
the results of it.
Because the thing is, man, when you're neck deep in debt, you don't really have time to think about why am I here in the first place. You're just trying to get out of the hole, right? And I feel like this game talks a lot about that. Like these characters are just trying to like escape this bad situation that is extremely common, right? And it seems like right now in the story. It seems like everybody is in that same situation.
Man, you just reminded me of that scene with Darius in Atlanta, where he's just like, poor people don't have time for investments; they're too busy being poor.
Yeah,
I need to see Atlanta.
Yes, you do.
I just haven't seen it in any streaming platform that I use. It's Netflix.
It's on Hulu.
See, man, we can talk about that later.
But yeah, like that's really like you said, poor people, they can't invest. They're just too busy trying to be poor, and just that's exactly. It's not like, what can I do with this money a week from now? It's like, no, what can I do with this money right now? Like I need this money to survive, to get to tomorrow, and not necessarily I need this money to set up my future for not even a week from now.
And that is also a plot theme in the book that I was mentioning earlier, 100 Years of Solitude, where poverty strikes or like economic hardship comes around and it affects characters in certain ways, right? So everything, they were going for a very specific feeling with this game, I think.
Yeah. Kind of going back a little bit, ringing it back around, what did you guys think of the art style?
I liked it.
Was it like it like Trevor said, it was kind of like a low poly, but like there wasn't a lot. There was like hardly, if any, detail on characters' faces, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, I really did like it was a lot of shading and silhouettes and just using of perspective and lighting, and it was like super subtle, but like it was super like effective.
Yeah, it kind of goes with because like the vibe I got from the game at the start was just kind of like, I didn't know what it was, right? I didn't know if this is like a kind of like a scary like thriller type game, or like what to expect out of it, right? Just because you boot it up, you look at the art style, you kind of hear how like you see how eerie things are, you don't really know what to what you got yourself into. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I was really. Anytime the cameras like change perspective, like the minecart one, I was like, this is sick. This is tight. There was another like when you're in the museum, seeing like the stuff change perspective was really cool. Like anytime the camera was literally shifting and it was making the 2D area look 3D by rotating the map, it was so. I loved it.
And when I saw that happening. And I've been playing around with Unity, and then I saw in the Wikipedia that they actually made this game in Unity, and like, it makes sense because that's one thing that Unity is good for. Like things just blend in with the background, and the background is actually like 3D, right? I love how the game kind of like it has a certain aesthetic, but it's also like, damn, it's just so pretty. It's like. Every shot could be like a painting, right? Just the way that the graphics engine works with the game, like the lighting, and there's one part that I really liked in the forest where sometimes the trees kind of like blur out part of the house, or like certain elements kind of like fade away the more to the right you move to the screen. Oh man, I'm a huge fan of how the game just shows you like the whole visual overload that you sometimes get.
Yes. What about you, Trevor?
As far as like the aesthetic of the game?
Yeah.
So one of my favorite things about this game, which you don't see too much of it in the latter parts of it, or at least it's not presented the same way, but is the traveling in the first chapter when you're driving in the truck, when you travel from one area to the other.
Mm-hmm. The wheel.
That aesthetic in the map, it has like this, I don't know what you would call it, like a CRT monitor type
like
visual.
You're talking about like where it's like a vector kind of, like it's just like super simple black background with like white lines.
Yeah, and then like that entire I don't want to call it a sequence because you can revisit that as you're traveling, but
that map, the overworld,
whenever they utilize that, as well as like once you get to the zero and the directions that it gives you, where it's just kind of like once you get to the crystal, turn around and keep going, like that whole area was just like the coolest thing to me, and I'm glad they incorporated that in the game, because that's kind of like the vibe I get whenever, like, I don't know. I know you were saying this game is based on like modern times, but it just feels like it's like real dated, and even like with the style of the gas station and the fact that you know, Shannon is a TV repair person, and you know, she has to repair that old fatback TV for forgot who it was, for that one house, like in the first chapter,
the Marquez house.
Yeah, it just, like, that aesthetic just feels like it belongs in this game.
Yes. Because they also have that part too when you're messing with the Xanadu.
Oh yeah, that was one thing I like too.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's not necessarily. It's like, I can't think of if we played a game. Did we play a game with like art style, or am I thinking of?
Yes, we did. Obra Dinn.
Yeah,
like you could change the.
I gotta play that game.
I guess the color.
Yeah, that's true. I was gonna say, like, if anything, the only game I could ever think of was Asteroids, like the Asteroids for Atari, where it's like super simple, like just a black background with a white, just drawing, like line drawing. That would be like the closest thing I could think of. I was gonna say, like I said, the silhouettes and just the lighting in it, like, I thought was super sick. And kind of piggybacking off of that, anytime, like, just the entire, like, anytime they had music in this game, especially when they brought about, like, those characters that were playing it in the background or foreground, like, the music in this game was hitting, one, and two, like, the times where you, as the player, get to interact and affect the music sequences were among my favorite parts in this game.
So we're going to talk about that one sequence.
Hey, let's talk about it.
The one in the which one?
You talking about Act 3, right, Trevor?
Yep.
You mean the performance in the bar?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, that was crazy.
Yeah. Yes. Like, so you end up meeting these two characters. Like, I guess kind of as a little backstory is like, you guys, it's you and or Conway and Shannon and another character. They're on the highway. They get I think their car breaks down or something. They need to get a tow, and they're on the highway, and these two kids or whatever, these two people on motorcycles drive by, see you, and are like, hey, we'll help you, but if we help you, then you gotta come to our show. We're about to do a show at this bar, this dive bar. I can't remember what it was called, but they're like, all right, sure, whatever. And so they go to this dive bar, and then there's nobody there. These kids, apparently, they have this standing appointment with the owner that every Friday or whatever they get to do a show, and I guess he pays them based on how many people are there to view it. So they're like, well, he's like, I can't pay you, nobody's here. He's like, no, we brought some people. And then they give this performance, and you're thinking, oh, these kids are going to be like super shitty, you know, like these like crust punk kids, like, you know, I visualize them in my head as like these like kind of punk, kind of leather jacket wearing kind of kids. They probably just play music really fast and really loud, and then they literally like they change clothes like on the stage as they're doing this performance. The roof of the building gets blown off, and you're just seeing the skies, and it's just like this super melodic, like dreamy sounding vocals are coming out of this girl, and I'm like, what the hell? Like,
no lie, I was playing this part like really late at night, and I thought I was dreaming.
Like, it is it's beautiful too, like how she's singing and like the visuals that are going on and everything, and it's just like, man, like how how do they nail this so hard?
I want to replay that part specifically. I absolutely it is such a Twin Peaks thing too. Like if you like that, you gotta see season 3 of Twin Peaks. Because it's definitely like I just got it. Like even the way it sounded, like, oh yeah, of course this guy loves Twin Peaks. They had to put this in the game.
Yeah. Man, and then there was a later part too. But I was like, I think like in my notes that I wrote down was the music keeps getting better and better. Wow, the performance, the outfit change, the roof coming off, the sky, like the show that's going on in the sky. I'm like, man, like all of this is like so sick right now.
Yeah, when that was playing, I was like, man, they literally tore the roof off.
Yes. Yeah.
And I just this is just a random thought that I got playing this game, and now that you mentioned the way you met these two characters, Johnny and Junebug, you tell me, it kind of feels like this could be like some sort of like aesthetic Scooby-Doo game, right? Like you just piling on these different types of characters and the way they're all like getting to know each other and interacting, and then there's the dog. I don't know, in my head it's just, oh, this could be kind of like a cool Scooby, like this is like a Scooby-Doo Mystery Machine type of feel right now, with all these characters like jumping in, and everybody's like just so different, but also
it's like a ragtag group.
Yeah, it's like a ragtag group. Yeah, I'm a sucker for that.
yeah, I definitely see that too, for sure. Trying to think if I had. I don't want to hit on any particular plot points, just because I don't want to spoil it, and plus you guys haven't finished it. Do you intend to finish it, Jonas? What about you, Greg?
Yeah, I'll probably finish it just to see where it goes, to be honest.
I will spoil this for you. There is another musical number in there.
Yeah.
All right. I'm in.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I really like that too, because you get to choose the lyrics and everything too. So it's just, man, I'm a sucker for that.
And
too.
There's a little bit of choice in the other musical number too.
Yeah. So I had a couple of different questions, but I guess some of them we can't answer if you guys haven't gotten to the end. So we talked about this art style. You guys didn't feel like we talked about the dialogue. I guess, what was your guys' favorite act of the ones you guys played?
Maybe Act 3 for me, just because I kind of dug the whole Xanadu section.
That's Act 4.
Oh, it is? Oh.
Yeah, that's it. No, I'm sorry.
I was
about to say,
that's where I'm at right now. Yeah.
That's Act 3. Okay. My bad.
Yeah. But yeah, I kind of dug that whole section. Just kind of the whole old school vibe of just kind of, typing up I guess it's kind of like a, what is it, the choose your own adventure type game.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of dug that.
What about you, Trevor?
Definitely 3, just because it had so much range to it.
Mm-hmm.
I like the Xanadu. I like the musical number. The whole scene at the tree was pretty cool. There was another thing I liked about. That was when you go to the factory, or not the factory, but where basically Conway gets another job.
That's in Act 3?
Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
Okay.
That part, that was pretty weird too.
Yeah, I mean, there's just, and even the interlude, like between episodes 3 and 4, like in the walkthrough that I'm looking at now, it includes that as a part of chapter 3, and that one after that was just like hilarious to me. I guess, Marcus, since you haven't played any of the interludes, I
can talk about them.
I won't spoil. They're all different. Like, all of them are completely different types of gameplay from the rest of the acts. So, and this one is very specific. Like, there's not a lot to it. This is probably the shortest one, because you can make it as short or as long as you want to. But I'll let you play through that one.
Okay. What about you, Jonas?
If the in between chapters count, that play in between 2 and 3, man, it was just chef kiss. Such an amazing. I mean, I'm not spoiling, but like it's a play. But when you look at the audience, you see little snippets of people reviewing the play, and in retrospect, right, like, or they're criticizing the play or like giving you background on how this play came to be, and then to see this part that for me at the time was self-contained become a part of the story, that was just like, wow. I'm a sucker for that. I loved it. Yeah.
Okay. I really did like Act 3. It's like really like I didn't like the Xanadu stuff as much. I like Act 2. I like the bureaucracy, just being in that building, the Bureau of Unclaimed Spaces, and just like how they were giving you the runaround and everything. I thought that was kind of funny.
What was up with the bears?
Yeah, I was about to mention that.
So I don't know. Like when I first got there, she's like, "Hey, if you want to do this thing, go to the second floor or the first floor or whatever." And I immediately, when I got in the elevator, I was like, "I'm going to the top floor." And like, did you guys go exactly to where you were needed to go from the beginning?
Yeah, I did it, and then when I got through the paperwork, I was like, okay, let me check out the bears.
Yeah, it was the same thing for me. I went up to, I guess it was the 5th floor you had to go to, and then as I'm going up, I'm like, hold on, why is there a floor with I'm like, I gotta see what's up with this.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did too, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to that floor for sure. There was so yeah, like either I really like the second act. I also like the fourth act just because like that was like you had everybody. You get that second music moment. I really like the environment that you were in, and I really like the different scenes that you went to in the fourth act. So I think maybe the fourth act might be my favorite just because I really like that setting without spoiling it. And then I think the last act, like when I first played it, I was just kind of like, I'm not really feeling this. But then when I guess like in the context of the entire game, I was like, I like what they did. But in the moment, at first, I was just kind of like, oh man, like I wish there was more. Did you feel that way, Trevor?
Yeah, if I had played this episodically, I think I would have been disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
And even on Waypoint, when I was listening to it, they were basically saying like anything you think is going to happen in the final episode of this won't happen. Like it's going to be completely different, and I think they were right. Like I would have never guessed like this is how it would have concluded.
Yeah, it's like not bad, but it's not like
it wouldn't have been worth the wait for me.
Yeah, that's a better way of saying it. But I like how it ends too. You know, at the same time we're saying this, but it's like, but also I enjoyed the ending. You know,
it made playing the game worth it. But if I had to wait however many months or years to get this ending, I don't know. I would have wished to have played all this at once. Like,
sure. What was your least favorite? Oh, what?
No, just sorry to draw so many comparisons to the same thing, but that's just how a lot of people feel about Twin Peaks. So I just can't help but draw. Like, okay, yeah, I know what these guys are going for. Like, yeah.
You're right.
I haven't seen the ending, but I'm just saying.
It reminded me a lot of Lost, just because, like, throughout the show, you're expecting this very big, grand, like, point where everything comes together. And it happens, but not in the way that you would expect it to. If that makes sense. I don't know if everybody in here has watched Lost. I know Marcus has.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Sadly. I like it. I'm just messing with you guys.
I couldn't tell. So you guys said your favorite part. What was your least favorite act?
I'll go ahead and say Act 4. Just because it was so freaking long.
Oh man. For me, like, I would have to say the last act. And like I said, I don't think it's a bad act. It was either, for me, it's either between the first or the last act. But I feel like the first act kind of sets the mood, and it's really weird because the last act is the payoff for everything leading up to it. But I don't know, like, I think the setup I really enjoyed, and I guess maybe it's just like I'm more so just disappointed that it ended. That's what I'm gonna say. I was disappointed it ended. What about you, Greg?
To be honest, I don't think I have like a least favorite like part of the game so far. I mean, like the only main gripe I kind of have with the game is like maybe I was like hanging on too much to the actual like goal of the game, right? The fact that you just
gotta make this delivery.
Yeah, and it's like it bugged me so much how they kept just like anytime he would go do something, it was always like, oh yeah, well you're here to do this, well why don't you do this now? And it was like, oh man,
it's like Finding Nemo, where it was just like, oh well, I'm supposed to find my son, but we got to go all the way to to Australia, so we're gonna have all these little adventures along the way.
Wow, you guys would hate Death Stranding. I don't hate it. You would hate it because Death Stranding is the game.
That sounds like Greg. Did you play Death Stranding?
No, not yet.
Oh, I thought that was your boy.
I mean, look, he's the homie. I just hadn't got around to it yet.
What about you, Trevor?
Oh, I think you're.
Oh, wait, you said.
Yeah.
You said. Oh, yeah, what about you, Jonas?
Well, I don't want to. Not a least favorite chapter, but I didn't like the part in the museum just because Conway was limping, and I had to. I was trying to. You're in the museum and there's like this big room and you don't really like. It's not obvious where you should go first. And some parts of the map, I don't know if you guys had the same problem, but some parts of the map would not get unlocked until you saw something else first. And because Conway was so, he was so hurt because of his leg, I was just kind of like, what am I supposed to do? I had an umbrella. I was trying to get out of the museum and I couldn't. I was just clipping at this invisible wall. And then I talked to everybody in the museum and then I realized, there's actually like an elevator on the back that I first couldn't get into because the first thing
you had to talk to everybody.
I had to talk to. Not only did I have to talk to everybody, but I just thought there was nothing there because the first thing I did was first go to the doors and then go back down, and I just had to go to the sides first. Mm-hmm. So it was just too slow for me. Conway was just too slow. Sorry, man.
I actually didn't like that part, but I really liked the part immediately afterwards. And so I had a question. What was your favorite?
I didn't like the flying part either. Oh! I just got lost. I just got super lost.
So my next question was, what are some of your favorite absurd or surreal moments? Like, what are some standout ones for you?
I have to think about that because there's been a couple of absurd moments.
Like, definitely for me was the first performance, and the bar was called Lower Depths. That was one. The one was when you find out that Ezra's brother is actually the eagle. Like, yeah. Because you're on that rooftop and it's raining, and I'm just like, yo, why is that bird so big? Like, you just see like a shadow, a silhouette of a bird just going on in the background. And I was like, why is that bird so big? And then I was like, I don't know what's going on or whatever. And you're just like doing your thing. And then you meet this boy, and then you just get scooped up by this huge eagle. I'm like, what the hell?
I really like the I really like the whole the Bureau of Reclaimed Spaces part. Just the whole I've been in that office environment, right? So I know how surreal it is. Like just, you need to go to the 3rd floor, the 4th floor. Oh man, like that was surreal in a different way, maybe. The whole bears part, I get what they wanted to do there.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Greg, Trevor?
I think that the point in Act 3 where Conway gets that second job, like just the whole act of him just kind of going down there, the fact that it's like a skeleton-looking dude just kind of guiding you through that whole thing, like just that whole section, and like him just kind of driving around, and then he's like, oh, congratulations, you got the job, and you're like,
what job?
It's like, oh, you took the drink, look.
Hey, it's expensive. You got to pay for it. And that's another thing too, man. I feel like the game is like, it makes comments on like the inequality, debt, and destructive growth of capitalism, and that was like another point right there where like every time after that, like he's like, oh, I owe this debt, like I gotta pay off, and it's just kind of like even showing people like their guilt and like like having debt and the guilt that people have associated with the debt, and like how they need to clear it in order to be like back in good standing in people's good graces and to be like a respectable member of society. Because there's a couple of mentions of like, I gotta do this thing in order to get back on my feet or things like that, and it's just like, man, like they had him by the balls, like like he also, like when he hurt his leg and had to go to the doctor, then the doctor's telling him like telling him all the freaking side effects of the medicine. Did you guys catch that? It was like,
oh yeah,
he's like, oh, when the drugs kick in, daydream, like here are the side effects: daydreaming, deja vu, pensiveness, fugue states, irregular perception of time. And it's like, wait, what? Like, it was like, you probably heard the saying, it's like, like when you hear the potential side effects of something is worse than the actual thing you're suffering from, you're like, maybe I shouldn't take this medicine. And him having to figure out a payment plan for this doctor, and the doctor was like, oh, well, I let the insurance people figure that out. I don't even bother about that. So he can't even explain to him about how to pay him and things like that. It's just too real. Too real. Sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, Greg.
Oh, nah. Oh, we're on somebody else there.
Trevor. Did you say anything, Trevor?
So it was probably one of the earlier moments to me, because once I started seeing things, I was like, okay, I know where this game is going now. But so, when Ezra's brother picked them up, I wasn't even surprised by it. I was just like, yep, this is a video game. But one of the earlier scenes, like when they're in the mine and you're on the tram, you have the option to turn your light on and off. Mm-hmm. If you turn it off, you'll notice that like there are some silhouettes like still in the mine, even though you're supposed to be down there alone. Mm-hmm. I don't know if any of y'all tried that.
I heard about it.
I did not actually.
Go ahead.
I did not like that. Like, wow, I totally missed that.
Yeah, and I think it happens in other parts of the game too. Like whenever Shannon uses her light or turns her light on or off, like certain things happen. I know there's a point in Chapter 4 where you can use it, and it also happens in Chapter 3 when you're at the factory, and you're seeing the skeleton people. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if those silhouettes in the mine were supposed to be skeleton people, or if they were actually like ghosts of the people who were left in the mine, or lost in the mine, whatever. But yeah, that was one of the scenes that did it for me. I was just like, yeah, let me turn this light back on.
Yeah. Ain't doing that again. Yeah. Well, the only other question I had was going back to it. So, is this a video game? Trevor, you have the floor.
This is a lot of things. Like I was saying before, it's a novel. It's a screenplay. I think it's a lot more of other things than it is a video game. But I think this was a good medium to present it in.
I think this... Trevor. I'm sorry, not Trevor. Greg. What do you think? Is this a video game?
I think so.
Is that it?
Yeah, I mean, there's like a lot of narrative to it, and there's no like I would say like there's no traditional like action segments or anything like that, but like you still have control over a character and make choices within the narrative. So, I mean, I think it's a game.
Jonas?
Oh man, I have feelings about that question. If Phoenix Wright is a video game, then this is a video game. However,
Objection.
Why? It's the same thing.
It's not.
It's the same thing because in Phoenix Wright, you can't go forward until you present the right evidence, and in this game, I feel like you can't go forward until you see the right things.
But if I think this is a video game as well, so I'm not arguing that. But like Phoenix Wright in this game, I mean, you have a whole thing where you're gathering evidence, and you're like, I guess the equivalent would be you're gathering story beats in this game.
Yeah, you just have to explore until you find the thing that you're looking for, and that's just I think that Phoenix Wright and this game are closer to visual novels than an actual video game, but it's unfair to not call them a video game because it does feel like it. So I just think they're more like story games,
Sure. I guess maybe asking if it's a game is not the right question. I guess it's like, do you think they were successful in presenting the story that they wanted to tell? And if not, do you think do you think that it would have been more successful in another medium? And I guess maybe that's the question.
And mind you, I love Phoenix Wright, and I don't say that it's not a traditional video game in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely types of stories that work better when you hand interactivity to the player. And Phoenix Wright is one of them, and that's why it's more engaging to play the games than watch the anime, right? Even though it's the same story, you kind of feel more invested when you have a little bit of control over what's going on, even if the ending point or the overall plot is inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, video game. Kind of.
So yeah, like I definitely think this is a game. I guess my question should have been, do you feel like this is the best way to have presented this story?
Yes, definitely. This could not work in like if there was like, even if this was like, have you guys seen Bandersnatch from Black Mirror?
I have not seen that.
No, I haven't.
It's kind of like a choose your own adventure Black Mirror episode.
Mm-hmm.
And this game could work, and it's sort of similar to that, but the way that it's presented with the graphics and the interactivity that you have, like moving your guys around and like all that stuff, I think this is the best way to tell this story.
Trevor?
I think because it takes so much from different mediums that this is the best way for it to tell the story, because there's no way they'd be able to, like Jonah was saying, the interactivity is essential to this game, just to tie all of these different things together.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think this was the right route. No pun intended.
Got him. I really, I think I read something and I was like, this is so smart. Like they were saying something like, this game is like the latest great American novel. And kind of like what Jonas was saying, like that was it Gabriel Garcia Marquez?
Yeah.
Like how he had like this super influential story that you read, like growing up in school. And I feel like this is like in my opinion, this is like, okay, like I grew up and we were reading like, Huckleberry Finn and The Great Gatsby and Catcher in the Rye and Monkey Paw and like all these stories, To Kill a Mockingbird. And like I feel like this is in that kind of lineage of like, here's I don't want to say coming of age story, because there's a story that is like set in the Wagon Times, I think, and it's about a black family and it's a play. And I know in the play in real life, I think P. Diddy was like the father in the play. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? It's like this black family in like the Dust Bowl era. But like this could be something like, whenever we had to in high school like watch something or read about a specific era, I feel like this could potentially be like in 2060, this is gonna be like the story about potentially that period in time, or like
I get it.
What capitalism, like if capitalism is still around or whatever, but like what like some of the cons of capitalism or how it affects people, and like being able to play it and kind of shape people's, and like you're not changing the story, you're not changing the happenings, but you are just kind of building the characters out and just how they feel about stuff. And like that will be, I think, super super cool in seeing like, oh, like this person's story is always going to be tragic because they're going to be like slowly being pushed out of this occupation that they've worked at for the last 20 years. They know that their job is being taken over, but you as the player can kind of like, it's up to you to see how she's going to look at that particular thing happening in her life, whether she's going to have a hopeful outlook on life or whether she's going to be super pessimistic and sour about it, or if she's going to be indifferent about it. And being able to do that across all these different occupations and different people and people at different points in their life. Because I mean, you have a kid that his family went homeless, they abandoned him, and he's basically an orphan to like kids that are just out of high school or high school age, and the job that they were set up in their life to have is no longer a thing. So now they're trying to figure out like what to do with themselves. You have somebody that's in the prime of her working time, and Shannon to somebody that's over the hill and he's at retirement age, and just seeing like these different characters in this setting. And I think that there's no other way that this would have been as effective. I say all that to say this.
If this game could have that recognition in 40 or 30 years to be that snapshot of how American life or American culture was in the 2010s, that would be amazing. I feel like this type of story should be recognized that way.
I think it should. Like, I don't really. I thought it was. I can't think of another game that like kind of delves this deeply into something and I feel like lands it too. Like there are so many games that touch on these things, or like you'll have a game that has some like story about minors or like references minors and like hardships and stuff, but like I feel like all of these people are like actual really utilized and realized people, and like so like the things that they go through I feel like are super like I don't know how to say it. I really dug this game.
No, I get it. They went for something and they stuck the landing, and now that it's complete, because my feelings for the game certainly changed now that the game is actually out and I can actually play it. But like this game does one thing incredibly well, which is telling the story about, like you said, destructive capitalism and life in these times, and also mixing all this American culture into it. I think they nailed it. Yeah.
Did you guys have anything else for Kentucky Road Zero?
I would like to see kind of like the same kind of game, but in, like I like this whole. It has that whole like, I don't want to say murder mystery or Twin Peaks or Gabriel Garcia, but I want to see more stories being told this way, where it's not showing capitalism or something as bad or evil. It's just we're really just processing a lot of emotions with these characters, and I like being engaged that way, and I wish I could see more of that. And if it's presented in this nice aesthetic package, even better.
Do you think you said it a couple of times about capitalism is bad? Do you think that like that is what the takeaway or a takeaway of the game?
I'm not really saying it that way. I'm not, but it deals with those emotions, and like you said, if you're poor, you can't invest. Yeah, there's not a lot of media out there that strike the balance between making a point and also, but it's not preachy either. I appreciate that the game is not preachy about it. It's just dealing with reality, right? And it can be good, it can be bad, because the game has good stuff, right? They talk about what they like, and they talk about it's a balance of good stuff and bad stuff. It doesn't feel like the creator of the game is telling you like, oh, see, look, this is bad, or oh, see, look, this is good. It trusts the player and it trusts the reader. Reader is more of what I would like to think of myself playing this game. It trusts that the reader is smart enough to get the story cues, right?
Yeah. Like I just was wondering, because I'm thinking like kind of what you said. Like I think that one of the things I like about this is it doesn't really take a stance. It's just like, here are the facts,
right?
Or here is this person's experience, and like just because you're the one in charge too, you can kind of choose how the person feels about their situation. So it's not saying like, oh, Conway hates capitalism, but he has to do it. You can take the stance where he's like, I won't say jolly, but he's like
a hardworking man,
Yeah, exactly. And
which is not unlike a lot of truck drivers,
all types of occupations.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
What were you about to say, Trevor? I saw you had unmuted yourself.
I don't remember. I remember a while back when you were talking about P. Diddy. I think the play you were thinking of was Raisin in the Sun.
Yes, thank you.
But I don't remember what I was going to say after that.
My bad.
Oh no, you're good.
So, Trevor, great game, great experience?
Good game, great experience.
Good game, great experience? Okay. So, and this is not, what do you think could have been improved, or what kept it from being a great game?
I think there were some technical issues in this game. Mainly just, like walking around. And especially when you were like in a vehicle or something like that. I don't think that worked that well, and maybe it was just because I was playing on Switch. But like Jonas was saying earlier, in one of the chapters after Conway gets injured and you're walking with him, like it's extremely slow. I think it felt like that in most chapters anyways. Like you got around extremely slow, especially with how small some of the levels are.
I actually didn't. I think it was a super stark contrast, because like right after you had that moment with Conway in being slow, like I think right afterwards you got to play as Ezra, and in comparison he was like running around and everything, so that was really a super stark contrast. And I have to think they did that on purpose, but it was like, whoa, like, oh, like I was so used to playing this slower character, and now I'm running around as this kid, and he's just gone. What about you, Greg? Great game, great experience so far? Because you said you're on chapter 4.
I'm gonna reserve judgment until I finish, but it's alright so far.
What about it? Like what is not reaching you?
I think the thing that was kind of throwing me off was, like I said, I think I was just kind of more focused on the task at hand, and I was like, man, this is just, it's going too many places. Like, he's going here, then like he's originally trying to do this one thing, but then now he's doing something else, and it's just kind of like, I'm still trying to process where they're trying to go with it, right? So I think that was like the issue I was having with it.
Gotcha. What about you, Jonas? Great game, great experience so far.
Great experience. To be honest, I'm not that huge on point and click adventure games, if you can even call this that. This occupies, like I said, the same place in my head as Phoenix Wright games do, and other visual novels like that. So if it wasn't so much like Twin Peaks, or it wasn't so much like, we're like Americana, Kentucky, which is an aesthetic that I like, bluegrass music and all that. If it was about something else, I wouldn't really care, right? But because the story is mixing a lot of things that I like in the media that I consume, that's why I'm playing it, really. So yeah, great experience. I love it. I feel like it's a very specific experience for a very specific audience. Like, I wouldn't recommend this to most of my friends. That when you think of video games, you think of, I don't know, Halo or puzzle games, right? This is not that, right? But yeah, I love it. I love it so far. I wouldn't blame anyone for not liking it, right?
Mm-hmm. And you forgive me, but you said you had only played the first 2, so you're just slightly further than you were the very first time, right?
Yeah, but I think, and I don't know if I'm right on this, but there's a lot of things in the first 2 chapters that I didn't remember. So I don't know if they added more content, or I just missed it the first time, or I just don't remember. So it's definitely felt like a new experience for me, even though I recognized most of those first 2 chapters.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Like the settings, like I just the scenes and all that. Like, I recognized everything, but there was a lot of extra stuff in between and extra dialogue. And I don't know if it's extra, if it's just me. So it feels like a new game for me.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think it was a great game, great experience. I really dug just the whole aesthetic, kind of like Jonas says. I'm a sucker for the Pacific Northwest kind of surreal David Lynch style. So that hit that. I thought the music in this game, like, I don't care at all about bluegrass music. And I enjoyed every single piece of music in this game, whether it's the bluegrass stuff, the more dreamy stuff, the custom stuff that you're filling in the dialogue for. All of it I really enjoyed. I just thought the sound design in this game was fantastic. I really enjoyed the writing. I really enjoyed how believable these characters were, and like their trials and tribulations. I really enjoyed like the whole, what we've been talking about, where you're like basically building these characters. I really enjoyed that. I don't know if I've ever or will ever see that in another game. And I don't know, like, there's so many things in this game that I really enjoyed, and there are things that I hope that other games take from. So hoping that this game is, in the next couple years, there are some people, even if they're not necessarily making point-and-click adventure games or even adventure games, if they take some of the influences or some of the things that this game did story-wise and start to implement in their game to kind of flesh out the world, I'd really enjoy that. But yeah, I definitely think all the stuff that I was saying earlier about, when I was hear about this game and seeing it on the Game of the Year list and all this stuff, and it never made sense to me. Like it makes sense to me now. Like I can understand why people even in those short like micro 2-hour bursts. Like if I was playing Act 3 when it came out in 2014, that might have been one of the best 10 games I played that year. I really that act was super sick, and I mean, you can kind of take some of these acts as their own standalone thing and still get a lot out of them. So, completely justified in seeing the praise this game got. So yeah, that is our discussion on Kentucky Route Zero. Where can people find you at, Greg?
You can find me on Twitter at Boombox Hero, on Twitch at twitch.tv/Magnegro with a 0 instead of an O at the end, and on YouTube at Magnegro.
Okay. Where can people find you at, Trevor?
You can find me online at Lyric Unsung.
All right. Where can people find you at, Jonas?
My Twitter, LolRaid, but also I'm streaming a lot. Like, I'm trying to stream better. So my stream is RaidBot, and I'm streaming like Valorant and VR stuff.
Gotcha. Do you have a regular stream?
Dude, I'm so bad at that.
Schedule or okay.
I'm so bad at it, but I'm trying to complete Death Stranding on stream just to have that there, right? And a lot of Valorant because I've just been hooked on it lately.
Did any of you guys play this on stream?
Nah.
None of you guys play this on stream?
Nope.
Damn.
It's just a hard game to stream because you have to be there and have, whichever audience you're going to get for the stream, they have to be there for the whole ride. If they miss even like 10 minutes, they're going to be so lost.
Sure. I guess that would be something where you're like, hey, Kentucky Road Zero Saturdays or something like that. Because the way I played this game was I would play an entire act in one sitting. And then I did all of Act 1 and then I was just like, okay, I'm stopping. Or I did all of Act 2 and then I'm stopping. Because I also didn't want to have it where I was like checking in halfway through. I wanted to get the complete experience in one sitting. You guys can find me on Twitter at Potato Salad. And our upcoming game, the game for August, is Trevor's game.
Yeah, and it's my birthday month.
Ozra's Wrath?
Yeah. I said, and it's my birthday month.
Oh. Excuse me. Well, happy birthday. Or soon-to-be birthday. I think we might have to get a re on that, Greg.
Oh, what are you playing again?
For Ozra's Wrath.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he'd probably be down.
Probably.
That's also like a story game, right?
Yeah, something like that.
I think what's interesting, too, is if we do get Reed, I think all four of us would have already played it.
Oh, we need to get somebody that hasn't played it, you're saying?
I don't think it's necessary, but
okay, yeah.
I think it'll be an interesting discussion, to see how well it held up from the first time we played it until now.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, that would be cool to do. So yeah, let's plan for that.
I'll hit him up.
Yeah, hit him up and ask him. And we need to, at some point, do our new list for the rest of the year. But we'll do that. We'll take that offline. If you like tuning into Missed Checkpoints to find out about hidden gems, cult classics, and indie games, then share us with your friends, family, and not shitty subreddit communities you're in. Hit us up on Twitter, comment on our Facebook page, leave us a review. Obviously, we prefer 5 stars on Apple Podcasts so we can appear higher in the leisure category. Just to let us know what you like about what we do, what episodes you like, what episodes or what potential games you would like us to cover. Just let us know. And with that, we are Missed Checkpoints and we're out. Peace.